see. Oh, good. Jean's on the call. That's great. Jean Logan taught nursing at Grandview. We have a number of
Oh,
nurses
awesome.
on the call, I see. This ought to be a fabulous conversation with Doug Burns, who wrote a story this morning about what is a significant news happening in central Iowa, and that is the potential for about 2,000 nurses in Des Moines who work with Unity Point Health campuses to vote early this month on whether to unionize their ranks. And the organizer for this effort, or one of the organizers, is Alex Wilkin, who is our guest today. With that, Doug, I'd like to turn it over to you to interview Alex, and then in a bit, I'll involve people on the call.
Alex, first of all, thanks for being on the call. One of the reasons the reason I suggested that you'd be on the call is I thought you were an extraordinarily effective advocate for nurses. Now, you are a nurse at Iowa Methodist Medical Center. You're a critical care nurse, and you're on the organizing committee, one of the leaders of an effort to unionize nurses at 4 campuses of Unity Point. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've been in nursing? I know you have young kids, I believe, and you're married to a respiratory therapist who's also a teacher. So just first of all, who are you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you for invitation to do this. This is wonderful. I'm so glad to be able to share a story of our unionizing effort, get this story out there. I was telling Julie and Doug how important I think this is, not just for us at Methodist, but also for our community, for other groups of workers who may be interested in unionizing eventually too. And so I appreciate this opportunity. So,
Where are you from originally? Are you a Des Moines area guy, or
yeah,
where you got into nursing?
yeah. So I grew up in Urbandale and then Waukee, graduated from Waukee High School in 2004 and went to Iowa State, got a bachelor's degree in sociology, and then did nursing school at DMAC after that. And so got my CNA and worked as a nursing assistant at Methodist Hospital on Yonkers 7 as a med surg floor in 2010, and then worked as a CNA until I became a nurse in 2014. When I started as a nurse, it was in the critical care unit at Methodist Hospital. And for the most part, that's where I've been ever since 2014. So I've been there for, I think, over 11 years at this point. So currently I live in West Des Moines. My wife and we have a 7-year-old boy. He's in first grade just down the road. And then I've got a 3.5-year-old little girl who is going to preschool here pretty soon. So got a
And
friend to take her so that I could be with you all this morning.
well, thanks for making that accommodation, Alex. The reason we have you on the call is on December 7th, 8th, and 9th, nurses, Unity Point Health nurses at 4 campuses, including the one you're at, Iowa Methodist, and then Methodist West, right? Those are the 4 campuses. Nurses in total will go to the ballot box in a union election, the decision about whether or not to affiliate with Teamsters 90, covers Des Moines and multiple other counties. And the National Labor Relations Board makes this. You were supposed to have the vote in October, but because of the federal government shutdown, obviously the National Labor Relations Board was not able to manage the election. So it's held on those 3 days. 2,000 nurses, critical care nurses, in a variety of other disciplines will cast their votes. First of all, why do you support unionization? Why is it with the Teamsters instead of SEIU or another union? And then, do you think this will pass?
Yeah. Do I support it? Why Teamsters and will it pass? Um, I support unionization effort. I just believe, I know that it's the only way that we as nurses are going to be able to get the changes that we need to take the best care of patients at bedside. So for me, this is a fight to basically improve our working conditions. We can take better care of patients. One, I can kind of go into what's happened, my perspective over the years and, what I think problems are that I think have frustrated a lot of us and kind of us to continue this union effort. Um,
Do
if you,
go ahead.
oh, okay. I've been a nurse for 11 years, and I've seen how the tools and the resources that we are given to do our jobs have just slowly been um, over the years. Year after year, whittled down, and we're expected to do more with less. And I speak about a specific experience in the intensive care unit. That's what I do and what I know best. But these stories, lots of stories just like mine in other areas, surgery, delivery, just med surge floors, ERs. Oh my gosh, ER. Oh, people are really struggling, those nurses there too. My story is in the ICU. And an example of something that's been whittled down over the years is we take care of the sickest of the sick. And sometimes that involves with equipment we call advanced modalities. So that could be like a machine we're running, it could be a balloon pump or an Impella device. Those two things help the heart do its work just kind of while the heart recovers. We even recover heart patients, but those patients that are these advanced modalities are supposed to be singled in the ICU, meaning one nurse to one patient, just because it's so much with all the medicines that you might be giving and the machine itself, and that patient just requires one-on-one care. Um, Over the years, specifically with dialysis, called a CRRT machine, slow dialysis versus what most of us know about dialysis, which is fast dialysis. Um, Not singled with those patients anymore. We are, most part, doubled. I do still try and single us, but it just works out that most of the time we're not. And so what that looks like for me, I was telling Doug a story on, talk the other day about um, I took care of a patient, and this was about a month ago. And HIPAA law, I'm not going to, any details at all about, someone I respect medical privacy. I was taking care of this patient, and this patient was extremely sick. They were on this slow dialysis. Um, and they were on a mask and just sick. They were on medicines to help with blood pressure to keep their blood pressure up. Um, and the patient also happened to be obese, so it was some coordination with other nurses and some techs every couple hours, like we need to do. And I was telling Doug how I got to know this patient's friends and family, and they told me how this patient was a community advocate and a teacher, and how much the community respected this patient. And it just gave me sort of a personal connection, um, be able to, I guess, talk with and educate a little bit more around what was going on. And build this connection. And it also leads to sort of emotional connection, can be problematic when we're stretched thin. And so in this case, when I was taking care of this patient, um, just described how much was going on with just that one, but I was also assigned to another patient that day. In other words, I wasn't singled with this advanced modality. And the other patient that I was taking care of that day was we were still kind of from an emergency surgery that that patient had. So that patient also had lots of things going on. And it basically led to me basically being a ping pong ball, or from one room to the other, just trying to make sure that all of the tasks that need to get done, patient survives, they're in the critical care unit, getting those things done. It was almost like I did not get to spend as much time as I, wanted to educating, getting to know the family and the patient better, and actually doing those extra things that really help patients to heal and get better. Those things include brushing teeth, bed head in the back of your head if you have long hair. And so, try and make sure we comb people's hair. And the nurses that are better at braiding hair than I do will do that for like hair. It's these little things that really are not so little, added up that we end up not having time for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you told me you went home and you were sort of haunted by that. You felt because so a big reason for the unionization effort, wages, salary, and earned capitalism, and somebody's salary or compensation is important. But and talking to you and other nurses, also talking to Lano De La Rosa with the Teamsters, is about staffing ratios, as you just described. And we'll have some other people ask questions and let you get more into some of these stories. But before we turn it over to the rest of the group, is this going to pass? Do you believe another nurse, one of your colleagues, Sammy Ladd, a nurse who works with you, I believe, at Iowa Methodist, she fully believes this is going to pass. The Teamsters are fairly confident. You have a news conference tomorrow with nurses, with the Teamsters, with elected officials, clergy at Iowa Methodist at 10 o'clock tomorrow. So I'm getting the sense that there's momentum for it. But then, point what's on the line here, because it's not just their Des Moines facilities. If there's unionization of nurses in Des Moines and it over into other sectors of their base in other locations from Sioux City to the Quad Cities, facing a very different bargaining table. So they've on their side, has anybody been very forceful. So bottom line, does this pass on December 9th? Are you going to be making an affirmative statement that this
It will pass. Yeah, Unity understandably wanting to keep a low profile about this. And I wanted to say that Corewell Nurses Michigan unionized
Detroit?
10,000 with Teamsters, and that happened about the same time that we launched our campaign in November of 2024. And that was a huge motivator for us. So to your point about how this could be inspirational to other groups of nurses and just workers in general throughout the state, I think that's absolutely right. You know, us and our success, because I do believe we're going to win. And, I'm hoping this triggers more unionization, too, because I think that that is important for workers to be able to have a voice in their working conditions. With capitalism as a reigning system, it's just workers, we don't have our interests. And I think a union is the way to do that basically in the United States.
At
Thank
the end
you,
of the day,
Alex.
they have a $400 million strike fund. So not that when you do unionize, not you're planning that, and you would hopefully gain what you need at the negotiating table, but just having the benefit that would allow you to bring that kind of to negotiations is something you don't have. So I think Julie wanted it up for other questions. Julie, is that right? Or you had a question yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And what's lovely about these is we oftentimes get people on them who have an expertise that is complementary to and one of those persons is Jean Logan, who was on the Broadlawns board. And you have an interesting historical perspective on organizing at Broadlawns.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say to Alex, I've been there. I think all nurses have been there where there's been discontent with how the leadership of a big institution has treated nurses. It's been a problem for many years. So I just wanted to by saying that because I do respect what you're doing. My experience on the board of trustees at Broadlands was interesting in that when I was elected to the board, they already had a union in place. The SEIU had come in and unionized the nurses. And after about, I guess, 7, 8 years, the nurses then voted to decertify and did do things that I wanted to comment on is the fact that your leadership in terms of your hospital leadership is whether or not nurses are satisfied or not, and whether or not you feel listened to. And the leadership at Broadlands at the time, he met with the nurses all the time. He ended up giving some extra compensation for good work, and the nurses were happy, and there was no need to have a union any longer, and they still don't have one. And so I feel like there's so much work that needs to be done on that end that has not been done. And I just think that that's where we've hit these big roadblocks. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of unions like the Teamsters, SEIU. I don't think they have the heart of nursing at hand. I feel like if you're going to have a union, it should be represented by nurses instead of a Teamsters union. But that's my opinion. There you go.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jane. You want to
I'll
comment?
go ahead and respond to that real quick. So there was a couple things. You're right that Broadlawns did decertify it in 2018
I
or
think before that, I think it was, I'm not sure the date, but anyway.
so my understanding is that Broadlawns, well, first of all, it's a public sector organization. And so unionizing in public sector is a little bit different than private sector. Um, the timeline with the decertification Broadlawns of SEIU is this, where Iowa legislators passed the to work for laws, and it I mean that's out the unions, right? And so that's what is needed for unions to be strong. Is people to be union, pay dues so that you money for strike funds. And unions powerful, which is what is needed. Um, I mean, I think you're right. Um, you know, hospital administration workers well. The problem is there's nobody that's going to hold administration accountable except for the administration is not going to hold itself accountable. We're the ones that work at the bedside daily. We're the ones that know what that work like. And we're the only ones that can advocate for that. In the United States, unions are the way to do that. And the other thing is Teamsters, Teamsters are coming in, and I just want to make the point that um, we are sorry that that's a general that people say to other the union as a third party. The fact is that the nurses have come to myself, other nurses in different units, from surgery, from labor and delivery, med surge, from pediatrics. We've come together, and we actually interviewed different unions. We interviewed Teamsters. We wrote to CIU. We wrote to actually NNU as well. Um, and AFSCME, reached out to AFSCME. Um, we went with Teamsters because they've got Local 90 here. The leadership, Alano, Tanner, Nico over there at Teamsters Local 90, they were on board with us. They came with contracts from other healthcare um, Teamsters healthcare unions, country. They were real ready to support us. We were very impressed with that. They have a team. They are willing to fight. They're willing to help us get what we need. The
Alex,
other reason we went with this because we have the opportunity to other groups of workers with Teamsters, whereas if we went with NNU, they only organize nurses.
thank you. Alex, I've got some nurses on the call and another person who's been involved in union organizing as well. But before we go there, you scare me a little bit when you talk about striking because people will die if nurses strike. That's my assumption. Um, how do you mitigate against that? How do you maintain you go on a strike?
Yeah. In the healthcare sector, there's rules about a strike. I think it's 10 or notice, which gives hospital administration time to nursing staff to be able to, and I'll just say it's a strike. That's not, I don't want to strike. I don't want to leave my patients. I don't want in the hands of somebody who is just coming in to take over. I certainly don't think that's good patient care.
Okay,
But frankly, there's just no like no other app. Unity Point will tell you, oh, just keep working with us. We'll do better as administration. That doesn't happen. It just
Okay.
doesn't. Not the motivations.
Let's involve the people on the call. And Mary McCarthy, your hand is not up, but I know I want to call on you, and then Pat Shipley, Joni, and then Keith. So Mary, if you're ready, come on board.
Hello, all. Hi, Alex. Alex,
Hi.
I went through a union in 2001. I worked at Mercy, Iowa City, which hospital is now bankrupt as of 2 years ago. So I said much about 5 o'clock this morning when my brain was really sharp, and I still have lots of questions. And I want to ask you a couple of fireball here. Do you have an acuity Iowa Methodist where you work?
Yes. Yeah.
And does the administration follow that?
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot of acuity measurement system. I know that like when we are assigned a acuity score and you can see, oh, I have, combination of patients is 400, somebody else's is maybe 200 or but in the critical care setting, I don't know how much that's more of like charge nurse makes the assignments, night charge nurse assignments for day shift nurses, and it's kind of like it's more of a judgment the assignments are made. What makes a difference is do we have enough staff that day to cover the patients that are there?
Mary, what's your question behind the question?
Well, because you can use that metric to see if the administration is meeting their own standard of care. My other question, well, I have lots of questions. How many travelers are in your institution right now? What is the average pay that they have? And how many agencies is Iowa Methodist working to staff your facility? How many other disciplines are going to be this Teamsters? Is it just RNs, LPNs, CNAs, RT? Who else is in the union contract?
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to how many travelers we have. Um, I'm, a staff nurse, but the answer about who will be covered in this bargaining unit, it's going to be um, registered nurses that work at hospital, Children's Hospital, Methodist West Hospital, and Lutheran Hospital. Um, Without going into too much of the Unity Point has muddied the waters a bit by including some hospital-based clinic nurses, some practitioners, but not all nurses, and just some more, I would say, not bedside nursing. But in any case, the members of the group are nurses, so you won't see CNAs, LPNs, or respiratory therapists, etc.
We're in. How do you think unionization is going to help stabilize or improve your staffing?
Right. So that's a great question because the most important thing to me is improving staffing because I think thing that's going to allow for retention of nurses. The story that I was trying to tell earlier was just nurses when they can't do what like they want to do or need to do for patients, they get frustrated, they get burnt out, they get, they just don't want nurses leaving. And in my opinion, that's why, because of staffing. So to answer your about how can a union help with staffing, it helps by, we negotiate, and there's lots to do this, but we negotiate into a contract basically some sort of penalty for Unity Point when staffing ratios that we would establish in our contract are not met.
Any more, Mary, or should we move on? We can come back to you if you want.
Move on. I'm sure other people have questions. So
Okay,
thanks, Alex.
Raise your hand if you want to come
Thank
back. Okay, Pat, Joni, then Keith.
I'm the only person on here who has been a union rep. That would be my guess. I worked for the Iowa State Education Association and was a union rep at the time we lost Chapter 20. That was one of my initial questions to you, Alex, was if you're not a public entity, so you are going to be governed by NLRB, right?
Correct.
Okay, so your bargaining scope is much different. We were faced with under the collective law and
Public
also
versus
the
private. Yeah.
recertification requirement under the changes to Chapter 20 in Iowa, which may have impacted Broadlawn's decision to not recertify, because that was we were faced with in the education arena as well. The bargaining sounds like you're limited to registered nurses, correct? So what's your maximum unit going to be if in the event that you would cover all those individuals?
About 2,000
Oh, wow,
nurses.
that's a lot. That's a huge unit then. But I guess the question have to do more with part of the reason for being part of a union is equity of treatment of all employees. And
Yes.
everyone has an equal voice, has the right to ask questions without retribution, basically. That is part of the collective bargaining. Normally that there is a hierarchy to when you talk to them, how you talk to them, how you're represented, and there's usually a third party in with them, with the union. That is exactly what we faced all the time. And also the whole thing that there is a collective bargaining agreement, whether they're a member or not, you have to represent them. They are represented by that contract, correct?
That's right.
That was my experience with NLRB as well. So National Labor Relations Board. So if you don't know what NLRB is, it's National Labor Relations Board. So anyway, I think that's probably the scope of it for me. I'm sure we lost folks at Iowa City as a result of recertification as well. So good luck to you. Those certification votes are hard. It takes lots of hard work, and good on you for attempting to make that happen. And it does mean there is equity of treatment of all staff, as well as the best possible you can do for those that have been placed in your care. So good on you, and I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
I just-
Yeah,
I just-
appreciate that.
I just have to insert here how proud I am of this call and this technology, and that all of you were to hop on the call and add your expertise. It informs all of us. So thank you. You're up next.
Hi, Alex. So I've been a union organizer since probably we were born, and most of that was with nurses. Although in the past, I don't know, years and teachers and now federal employees. But I was with SEIU when we organized the health center in Iowa City. And then with the Minnesota nurses, we came down and organized the hospitals in Marshalltown and in Council Bluffs. And so first of all, I just want to say congratulations. A 2,000 person unit is phenomenal. I wish the absolute best of luck. And I just wanted to add some of the other questions that were asked. As far as staffing levels, we have been able, back in the day when I was working, we were able to negotiate certain staffing levels in contracts. And that is the benefit of having a unionized nursing workforce, right? Is that you're able to negotiate not only staffing levels, but hours of work, no mandatory overtime, things like that, where nurses that don't have you are sometimes forced to work 16-hour shifts back to back. Just, really, really unsafe working conditions. When I went back in 2010, I led the largest nursing strike history in the cities. We took out 12,000 nurses in 14 hospitals and basically shut down healthcare in the Twin Cities. It was just a 24-hour strike, but there were $1 billion worth of concessions on the table. And yeah, we weren't going to go for that. So we went out, as Alex mentioned, there's a 10-day notice requirement for workers. That's part of the Healthcare Act from 1974. And so we had to give 10 days notice. That's an opportunity for the two sides to come together and work out their issues. Or like Alex said, they bring in travelers, which the Twin Cities chose to do. For a one-day strike, they spent $10 million on traveling nurses to come in for one day. And in the end, they took all those concessions off the table and the nurses went back to work. So it wasn't something the nurses wanted to do. Like you said, Alex, don't want to strike, right? It's the last thing they want to do. But the patients were supportive. I mean, we had patients in their windows holding up signs, nurses that were out there picketing. It was really pretty. So all I really wanted to say, Alex, was congratulations and good luck. And yeah, those of us that have been doing this forever are certainly on. Oh, and one other thing, when we organized the nurses in Marshalltown, I'll never forget, we were at the vote and we won like with 94% of the vote. And the CEO there just couldn't understand it. He couldn't, I mean, he thought that his nurses loved him. And afterwards, and he said, I don't understand this. I've been talking to these, I just don't understand it. And my lead organizer was standing next to me and he said, well, that's the problem. You were talking to them, we were listening. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyways,
Thank
congratulations.
you. Thank you, Joni. Thanks for joining the call. Really. Keith Moyer, you're up next. And you need to turn your microphone on, please. Thank you. And it's still off, Keith. Okay. Scott, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and go to you and back to Keith. Oh, well, Keith, okay. Scott, and then we'll go to Keith. Go ahead.
Okay. Uh, yeah, thank you for this information. I guess my biggest, why will it pass this time? I'm not in a union. I've never been in a union. I was really very, very involved in unions. He's retired now. And I generally say the idea of a union, but I know this has been tried before because I was the Kronos dealer, Kronos Automated Time and Attendance and I sold the whole Kronos system to Iowa Methodist and then the rest of what became Unity Point. And at the time, the resistance was that the administration thought that if they put in time to treat nurses as unprofessional, and it was actually the opposite. The nurses wanted to be compensated fairly, and they weren't getting compensated fairly because there was all this complicated different shift differentials and callbacks and everything else. And the only way to handle any of that is with an automated system. So the good news is you've already got that kind of a system. But I know that this was over 40 years ago.
Okay.
The purchase of that's delayed by a number of years because of the administration's fear. And I can remember after that, because they were a client of mine for a long time, that there was a hard battle to keep unions out. And I won't malign Unity Point, but I would say that they're like any other large healthcare organization. Their interest is not our best interest. And I'm speaking for all of us at that point. I think that it's safe to say that under the dozens of LLCs that own the property and everything else, it does not serve us. I mean, we don't need any more evidence than the fact that our 4 to 10 times as much as any other civilized, advanced country, and yet we have poorer results. So, if this isn't an indictment of for-profit healthcare, what is? So, I know though why you're going to succeed this time because that's a big juggernaut, and they're going to run over you if they get a chance. So, I guess that's my.
Thank you so much. How do you address that?
I want to add, yeah. So I think it's 40 years ago, they got Kronos, and its nurses were up in arms at that, maybe around that issue. I think is what you were saying, and
Actually, the nurses were all for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like bringing the part of the reason the push for it. But the reason I kind of find that funny is because history and the things that spurned this unionization effort. It was October of last year, and we went to November, was implementation of UKG timekeeping. And what happened with that implementation, administration was like, oh, we want to standardize shift differential practices at our affiliates, huge organization that's not just in other places in Iowa as well as other states. And this standardization effort that they went through with the implementation of UKG, basically pay cuts, which disproportionately affected procedural nurses. Some of them would be making effectively want to make less than $2,000 a year. I mean, that's not an insignificant pay cut. And this is just because switching systems, like
Alex, that's a good example. One of the problems with automated solutions is if people that implement these are not principled or as should be, then they will blame cuts that they're making on the technology. There's no real switch when you go from Kronos to UKG.
No. And we're
UKG
not blaming technology.
UKG
It's
UKG is the successor to Kronos. Kronos and Ultimate merged 5, 6 years ago, so it's the same company, same products, just an updated version of it. But
right.
they're using
And
that excuse to cut people's pay, and that's not uncommon
exactly.
in healthcare.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot. Thank you, Scott. And
Yeah.
Keith, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I worked in a union. Well, I was a union member back in Cedar Rapids, and back in 2001, we were paper workers. And within 3 years, another union and a different name, which was paper and chemical. And then there was some other union in there for a short time, and then we were steel workers. I'm just wondering, somebody made a comment about, well, why don't they have a nurses? Is there an actual nurses union of any sort or healthcare
Yeah.
worker?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said earlier, National Nurses United is like an only, they're definitely very big, over in, the West Coast. But, the reason why we with them, well, one, they didn't respond to us when we reached out, but number two is they organize just nurses, and we really do want to include other, you know, this is a lot of us. It's not just about it's about workers taking power back to make decisions, actually improve our and the work that we do. I think ultimately serve patients in the hospital setting.
Okay. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Yes. We have met the Iowa Writers Collaborative on the call, and I'm going to call on them unless they choose not to participate. But Chuck Offenberger wrote a fabulous recently about his experience receiving STEM treatment. And if you haven't read that, I highly commend you to it. Chuck, do you have a question or a comment for Alex?
I do. As I tried to reflect in that column, Julie, in general, I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah.
Alex, it's nice to be on the call with you, and it is a fascinating conversation. Couple of questions, since she brought up my stem cells transplant, which was the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics in 2010. Are they unionized there? Are the nurses unionized and what is the union over there? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's SEIU,
It's
and
SEIU.
yep. And
The
that's a public union as well, which again would be then private sector union, that we're working on at Unity Point. And again, private basically we can negotiate all areas of our more limitations in public sector and negotiate.
Well, another question I have is 100 years ago, I was involved in a union election in the newsroom at the Des Moines Register. It didn't pass actually, but one of the fascinating things to me was the of people's opinions on this and how active they would get involved in the campaign. So right now in the proposed bargaining unit at Unity Point facilities, how much campaign activity has gone? How long has that been? And what's your opinion of the general tone of the conversations between you and your allies and people on the other side of this? How has that played out in the workplace in terms of how long on this? Is it fractious or is it congenial? How would you characterize it?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it's a question that can't be answered without about union busting. Um, and I don't know. Well, I'll just how much people are aware about how much union busting has been going on, but Labor, which is a rights watchdog, filed a series of against basically union busters, their relations consultants is what they call themselves, for not filing required disclosures that show how much they get paid. We do have some disclosures or LM20 forms that show that some of the union busters that are actually working probably right now at the hospitals that we're organizing get $400 an hour travel plus plus per diem for meals, like one of them $75 a day per diem for another contract. I think it was for Karina Hunt it's like an hour in the same where she gets for her travel and all that. Because none of Iowa, of course. So, $450 an hour, that's a lot of money. They also have Littler is, I think, a world-renowned anti-union law firm. And what they do all day long is fight unions. And those attorneys reportedly make up to $1,760 per hour. So this labor watchdog put together a report saying just showing that Point has spent between 3.1 and dollars on union busting efforts between when we announced our campaign in November of 2024 to I think that report out in early September. So $6.2 million that could have been used to actually address our concerns instead. But get back to answering your question about how does that affect our work environment. We have these anti-union people walking the halls at the hospital, stopping nurses in the halls, going into empty rooms on overnight shifts on the labor and delivery floor, having nurses come into those empty rooms and talking to them about how unions are bad. And so unfortunately, they are able to convince some people because in a group of nurses, even though there's a lot of us on the organizing committee, we can't necessarily to people. Unity Point has also used, its email system. We get emails from Becky Nail, our in Des Moines, about, oh, here's some information about unions, and it's of course all characterized, and so these emails are from our CNO. They blast texts out to us with links to their anti-union page hub. The hub is like when we log into our computer at work, the first thing you go to is the hub, the intranet page. And so you scroll by and it'll say, uh, Know Your Rights, which is a campaign that's happening at Unity Point. It's an anti where they just have all of this anti-union propaganda, but it goes right there across the screen where everybody can see it. And then the next screen is We Hear You. There's another big We Hear You campaign there, and they tell us about all things that they're doing for us. They just bought us all new chairs to sit in. Bought some new over the bed, which is those things are super heavy. It hurts the back to them. The wheels are all stuck. And anyway, not to get off on a tangent, but there is this $6 million buys an environment where people are afraid to talk about unions, that are afraid of retaliation if they show open support of the union at work. This is what that money does. And it's a whole thing. Gene third party union earlier, and that's what they do. This is us. This is nurses. This is trying to do the right, trying to get we feel like we deserve.
Chuck, anything else or no?
No, that's good. You're well
Sorry,
spoken.
long-winded. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Laura Bellin, do you have a question?
First of all, Chuck, if has anyone written about the union vote at the Des Moines Register? Because I've never heard of that, and someone needs to write that story, man. That sounds interesting. But can I ask a question that's not directly related to the unions? There have been so many well-informed questions on this call, which I really appreciate. But I'm curious, one thing that I've followed in my reporting the last few years is the growing influence of anti-vax sentiment and the Republican Party and the Kim Reynolds administration, which is now to the point that the state Health and Human Services Agency no longer encourages people to even get a flu shot. They just say, like, talk to your medical provider about what vaccines may be right to you. And I have to that the vaccination rate and the flu shot uptake rate has to be going down. I'm just wondering if nurses see that, if you're seeing more people being admitted with preventable diseases or preventable illnesses?
Um, just from, I don't have the data to be able to answer that generally speaking, but from experience, we get messages, and this was maybe a few months ago. We're getting messages from like our infection prevention department of measles, and we have a new like measles screening tool that primarily nurses in the ER are using to kind of patients. There's been more of a push hospital that I'm aware of for like our suits team, which is sort of specialized team that would be to like a highly contagious something, and so trained in like special types of and donning and doffing special gear to keep nurses taking care of patients protected. So. Um, in experience, I've seen more issues around preventable diseases. Yeah, I mean, it clearly stems from RFK and all that nonsense.
Okay.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Alex, for coming on. First, I have a couple of questions if we have time, but first I have a statement. It's egregious that they act like they are doing the nurses a favor when they provide something like chairs and tables, like that's a gift. That's something they're doing for you, and it should be just something that is taken for granted that they should provide, and now you're supposed to be grateful for that. I think that's egregious. Another thing is I'm wondering what the nurses think are the root causes of this, just the nature of capitalism today. I mean, or is it something that you can pinpoint that could be fixed, or is this just, sort of the inevitable, post-capitalist kind of world we're in?
Yeah, I do think it is. I mean, I guess without getting too idealistic, I think that this is sort of the inevitable outcome of capitalism. Like our CEO, Scott, our market level CEO, because then CEOs makes over $1 million as well. Our chief nursing officer, the last one we had, Kundi, she actually just went to Wands. I think she made a year at Unity Point the last time it was reported, maybe in 2023. And I think what that shows is um, it's more about, it seems like it's them making a profit. And by the way, not profit, not for profit. But that doesn't seem to like in the way that, and I think evidence for that is that CEOs make so much money. I think I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought with
It'll
that.
come back to
Robert.
you.
Yeah.
Mary McCarthy has one more comment. We're coming up. Thank you, Bob, for that great observation. Question.
Okay, Alex, good luck on all this. I don't know if you've gotten the hospital's 990 IRS, but there is a wealth in those. I have studied my former employees, even well, it's a long story, but I have stacks of them in my office. But that, if you haven't gotten those, you need to get those. Hopefully the union has those. You can get them on GuideStar. If not, have somebody go to your fiscal office and ask for it. It is a public document, and the public has a right to ascertain that document. It'll tell you exactly how your top 5 CEO, your CEO, all those people, what they're made. And it is shocking. And I will tell you, the other thing is all these people that leave these big healthcare jobs always leave with a parachute. You think it only happens in Trump land? It happens in Iowa. Okay, good luck. This is very, very good presentation. It's got my nurse body.
I'd have to say first, thank you, Alex, for being with us. You, Doug, telling this story originally in your column this morning. The value of the Iowa Writers Collaborative is brought home to me every single day, and this is one significant example of how we're getting a story told in Central Iowa that might not have been told this way, with the expertise of so many of you who have firsthand knowledge of all of the aspects that Alex is talking about. Doug Burns, would you like to wrap it up and take us home? Thank you again.
Alex, just first of all, thanks for the all the information, the incredibly thoughtful for agreeing to do the interview. I think people on this can see why the Teamsters and your fellow nurses really trust you in this. You're, regardless of whether people agree with you or not, you're an outstanding spokesperson. What's next? You have a news conference and rally tomorrow, and vote on 7, 8, and 9 of this month. Just close by just kind of giving us of what's next.
Yeah, so you said it tomorrow at Methodist, basically at the main end, I think it's off of Center Street. We're having a gathering of people. Um, we'll be talking about what's today is Monday. So Sunday, the first day of our vote, and then we have a vote on Monday and Tuesday, and then the count is on Wednesday. So we'll know a week from Wednesday, that we won. But the conference tomorrow, one of the questions that Unity Point has spent, at least $6 million on union busting. We want that wasn't coming from Medicaid funds. A lot of the fund from Unity Point comes from that, and calling for an audit of that.
Thank you so much. Alex, I'm going to track the uploading of this podcast. So if you want to use it to distribute to anybody, you're certainly welcome to do that. Again, thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much. And I love the Iowa Writers Collaborative. I've just learned about it, and I've been following Laura Bell and Bleeding Heartland for a while. Iowa news is, we focus on national sometimes, but I really appreciate you and Robert Leonard, your work on the and looking into that lately, and that's amazing. I listened to it. You did. Sorry, I don't want to keep you guys past. I listened to an interview you did with an unhoused man, and it was just awesome. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So glad to have you with us. Here. Bye-bye.
Bye.